They thought humanity was naive, grateful, curious, easy to control. They were right about one thing. Humanity had been quiet for 30 years. They just never asked why.
The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was not built for equals. Its obsidian walls had absorbed the screams of dying empires and the hollow applause of victors. 47 species had carved their seals into its ceiling, each one a reminder of who held power in this galaxy and who did not. At the head of the chamber sat High Speaker Vithkal, 9 feet of silver-scaled ambition. When he ruled, galaxies bent. At the far end of the table sat Ambassador Lena Vasquez, 43 years old, sharp-jawed, dark-eyed. She had not raised her voice once in 11 years of service. She wasn't planning to raise it today either. Vithkal rose from his throne like a man who had already written the ending. The Council has reached a resolution regarding the human accord. His 4 eyes swept the room with practiced indifference.
Earth's territorial boundaries will be reduced by 60%. Human military vessels must be decommissioned and surrendered to Council custody. A tithe of 22% of Earth's annual resource output will be redirected to Council infrastructure. Silence. Not the comfortable silence of agreement. The silence of a room waiting to see if someone would be foolish enough to object. Non-compliance, he added, almost gently, will be interpreted as a declaration of hostility. The consequences have been made historically clear. Several delegates shifted. The Cathari representative tapped his claws together, what passed for amusement among his kind. Everyone looked at Lena Vasquez. She had not moved. Hands flat on the table, expression unreadable, breathing slow and even.
Ambassador Vasquez, the Council awaits Earth's acknowledgement. Lena looked up at him. Then she looked slowly around the chamber, not with anger, not with fear, but with the quiet, cataloging gaze of someone taking inventory, as if she were memorizing faces. Then she reached beneath the table and pressed a single key.
Council security had scanned the device 3 times. They dismissed it as standard diplomatic equipment. They were wrong about a lot of things. The channel opened, encrypted, bounced through 17 relay points, direct to Earth. She spoke clearly, calmly, without any emotion the translation nodes could identify. They said it. She closed the channel. Thakal blinked all 4 eyes.
Ambassador, the Council requires a formal...
You'll have your answer, Lena said quietly. You just already got it. No one in that chamber understood what she meant. Not yet. They assumed it was human bluster, the desperate posturing of a species too young to understand its own insignificance. The Cathari representative actually laughed, a low clicking sound that rattled around the chamber like gravel in a drain. Lena Vasquez folded her hands and waited. The clock above the chamber entrance read 14:07:33. In 6 minutes and 40 seconds, it would not matter what time it was. What if I told you this moment had been planned for 30 years? What if every smile Lena had given in that chamber, every polite nod, every diplomatic concession, had been part of something much larger? What if humanity had never been the naive newcomers the Council believed them to be? What if they had been watching the whole time, waiting for exactly this moment?
When humanity made first contact with the Salvon Collective 41 years ago, the reaction on Earth was not purely wonder. Within 72 hours of confirmed alien contact, 17 different government agencies had quietly opened new file directories. Not for diplomacy, for contingency. What if they're hostile? What if they seem friendly and are hostile later? What if we need to fight all of them at once?
The public saw the handshakes, the press conferences, the breathless news coverage of humanity's first steps into the galactic community. They didn't see the basement floors of certain buildings in Geneva, Colorado Springs, and a location in rural Siberia with no official name, where men and women in unremarkable clothing began building answers to questions nobody was supposed to be asking. Protocol Prometheus was authored by a woman named Dr. Yale Oren, a military strategist, 61 years old at first contact. She spent 3 years reading every translated piece of Selvan history she could find. What she found did not comfort her. The Selvan had absorbed 19 species. Not destroyed, absorbed. Stripped of sovereignty, reduced to labor, renamed as protected members of the Galactic Council. The Council was not a government. It was a hierarchy, dressed in the language of cooperation. Dr. Oren wrote in her classified report in plain language that made her superiors uncomfortable. They will eventually come for us. We must be ready before they think we could possibly be ready.
Prometheus was elegant in its deception. Earth would join the Council, cooperate, trade, share cultural exchange, play the grateful, slightly naive newcomer. Meanwhile, every piece of alien technology would be studied, reverse engineered, and quietly improved upon. Every military installation in space would be officially logged at 60% of its true capacity. Every warship registered with the Council would be the older model. The newer ones would be listed as decommissioned. They were not decommissioned. They were waiting. What if the most dangerous military force in the galaxy had been hiding in plain sight for 30 years? What if they had been asking polite questions at council meetings, mapping every weakness in galactic infrastructure, one diplomatic briefing at a time?
For 30 years, Prometheus had been updated, expanded, handed from one generation of commanders to the next. The soldiers who trained under it never spoke of it outside secure channels. They weren't bitter about the secrecy. They understood it, the way a chess player understands the value of a piece your opponent doesn't know you have. When Lena's 3 words arrived, they said it. A duty officer in the Siberian facility turned to his console, entered a 14-digit authorization code, pressed his thumb to the biometric reader, and spoke clearly. Prometheus is active. Authorization confirmed. All fleets execute positioning orders. Communications blackout in 30 seconds. Across hidden stations buried in asteroid belts. Across the dark side of moons Council survey teams had never been permitted to map. Lights came on. Engines ignited. Silently, in the vacuum of space. Humanity's real fleet began to move. Not with anger, not with fear. With the quiet
the terrible patience of something that had been waiting a very long time. Back in the council chamber, Vithkal had grown impatient. The first alert came as a low-level proximity flag. Routine, except the debris was moving in formation. High speaker. The duty officer's voice was carefully controlled. We are detecting unregistered vessels, 63 contacts on approach vectors covering all primary docking quadrants. Species identification. A pause. 3 seconds too long. Humans, sir, but the configurations don't match anything in our registry. These are not the vessels we have on file. The chamber erupted. Not in fear, in outrage. Ambassador, explain this provocation immediately. Lena looked up. Her expression hadn't changed. Those are our ships. We have records of every vessel in your fleet. Those are our real ships, she said simply. What followed would be studied in military academies for generations.
The human vessels didn't charge. They didn't fire warning shots. They simply took positions, precise, geometric, interlocking. And the pattern they formed made the station's entire point defense system useless. Every firing angle the station possessed, covered by a human ship positioned in exactly the right place to neutralize it. The Council's military AI flagged the formation as theoretically optimal, then spent 11 seconds trying to determine how the humans had known the station's defense-grade topology well enough to construct it. The answer? They had attended 3 separate diplomatic infrastructure tours of Nexus Station over the past decade, and it simply remembered everything.
Salvon Admiral Drexen stared at the tactical overlay. He zoomed in. He rubbed the bridge of his snout, a gesture his subordinates had never seen him make before. "How long?" he said quietly. His officer ran the numbers. "Sir, the positioning vectors suggest pre-calculation of at least 15 to 20 years. Drexen closed his eyes. They had been watching humanity attend meetings, argue about agricultural tariffs in committee sessions. And the entire time, human commanders had been plotting exactly where to park their ships if this day ever came. Not if, when. The first strike was not a weapon. Every screen in Nexus Station showed the same image simultaneously. Ambassador Vasquez seated calmly in the council chamber, and one line of text in all 47 languages. Surrender command codes. Release all non-council personnel. Stand down. This offer expires in 90 seconds. The High Speaker refused. The 90 seconds passed. What followed lasted 11 minutes and 4 seconds. They had a list. They worked through it. Station command fell at 14:26:07. 11 hours ago, the Galactic Council formally threatened the people of Earth with territorial seizure, forced military conscription, and resource extraction under penalty of eradication. She paused. Earth responded. The Council's structure was not governance. It was predation with paperwork. The Velmir have spent 2 centuries watching their minerals extracted and their children conscripted, while the Council called it integration. The Kasafi lost their governmental sovereignty in a legal clause that was deliberately mistranslated in the original accord. We have the original documents. We have had them for 9 years. She placed a data chip on the table. Everything is here. Every mistranslation, every falsified report, every resource diversion. The truth has been classified long enough.
We didn't destroy the Council because we are stronger than it. We destroyed it because it threatened us, and because we were ready, and because someone had to. If you choose to make us your enemy over that, we will defend ourselves completely again. No one watching doubted it. But that is not what we want. She looked directly into the camera. We want what every species at the bottom of the Council's table wanted and was never offered. An actual seat. A structure where the Velmir homeworld belongs to the Velmir. Where small species are not cannon fodder. Where the currency of diplomacy is not fear. 5 seconds of silence. We're building something new. We're not asking for trust we haven't earned. We're asking for one thing. Her voice, for the first time, carried something close to softness. Would you like to try this again? As equals. The news broke differently, depending on where you were. On Salvin Prime, 4 hours of silence. On Cathari networks, 3 generals arguing over each other. But on the Velmir homeworld,
A grandmother watched the footage on a cracked screen in a building that had once been a council labor processing facility. She watched for a long time. Then she turned to her granddaughter and said, in the Velmir tongue the council had twice attempted to phase out. Someone finally got tired. Her granddaughter was 8 years old. She didn't fully understand, but she remembered it.
A Cathari intelligence analyst named Grevshin had filed 6 reports over 14 years, suggesting that human data requests at council meetings were strategically patterned. All 6 had been ignored. He pulled them out now. They formed a picture so clear in retrospect that it made his stomach drop. He wrote a new conclusion. We were the threat. We were always the threat. They were not preparing for war. They were preparing for the war we were eventually going to start. He filed it, and this time sent copies to 20 offices without asking permission. The first response to Vasquez's broadcast came from the Velmir, a handwritten letter on actual paper, addressed simply to the human ambassador, wherever she is. It read, "We accept. We have nothing to offer you except our word, and we understand if that is not enough. But we are saying yes, because we are tired of waiting for someone to ask." Signed by 47 community leaders, stamped with the old Velmir sovereign seal, the one that hadn't been used since the absorption. Someone had kept it in a box under a floor for 170 years. They had kept it because they believed that one day there would be something worth stamping it on again.
1 year later, the building had no name yet. Wide, low, glass and reclaimed stone. No high ceilings meant for the powerful to look down from. No elevated thrones. The seating arrangement inside was circular, weighted so the smallest species sat closest to the center, and the largest farthest away. Lena Vasquez stood at the window. Below her, a construction crew worked on the Congress floor. A Velmir consultant pointed at something in the support structure, talking to a human engineer who was nodding and taking notes. Something about it was difficult to look at for too long. Not because it was painful, but because it wasn't. She walked out into the corridor, heels quiet on the unfinished floor. Behind her, to no one, she said it. Not as a speech, not for any record. Just a thought that had been living in her chest for a long time, and finally wanted air. We didn't do this because we're the strongest. We did it because someone had to go first. The corridor was empty. There was no one to hear it. That was fine. They had 10,000 years of being the most dangerous thing on their planet behind them, and 1,000 years of space ahead. They had species pressing their palms to unfamiliar floors, just to check if they were real. They had a circular Congress room, 40% built. They had work. Humanity had always been best when it had work.